The week was long, your feet are tired, could use a vacation. Just gather round and join with Dub, it's Monday Motivation. Monday Motivation.
Hello friends, another Monday morning, another Monday Motivation for you. Welcome to, I think this is week 29 of hashtag bigdubfit. Don't forget to use the hashtag bigdubfit to enter the giveaways for July. Post one positive thing that you've done for your wellness journey, physical, mental, emotional, whatever the case may be for you, and you'll be entered to win the prizes for July. Now let's get to our quote of the week for Monday, this Monday Motivation, as we are midway through July. And the girls and I, we went and saw the Elvis movie this weekend, and I thought that would be a fitting person to find a quote from. So our quote this week comes from Elvis Presley, and it is, "You only pass through this life once. You don't come back for an encore." That's an easy quote, pretty straightforward. I think we all understand what he means. But I thought Elvis would be a good place to draw inspiration from for this week. The movie being fresh in my mind. It's an enjoyable movie. I'm sure there's certain liberties that are taken, certain things that are switched around, but I think a lot of it is pretty accurate, at least to the sentiment of the life that Elvis Presley lived. And if you are a fan of Elvis, or you have family that's a fan of Elvis, or you don't know much about Elvis, I would recommend you go and see it. But Elvis is such a unique character in pop culture history, and really in our entire country, in the American history, in the way that he crossed boundaries and crossed borders and appealed to such a broad audience. And I think most people are familiar with the nature of the demographics that he impacted, and was one of the first artists that would be popular across the spectrum of a lot of different people. In fact, creating some challenges, and watching that movie, it's just amazing that only 70 years ago there was segregation at concerts and things like that. That's amazing, and it helps keep in perspective that how young a country we are, and why we still struggle with the things we struggle with today, and how those things are still real and impact people in a very real way. But for the purposes of what I'm talking about, one of the things I've always been interested in Elvis about is my parents, and my mother specifically, who I'm not sure really listened to much secular, non-Christian, non-gospel music in her life. She was a big Elvis Presley fan, and he was really the only non-gospel Christian type artist that I ever remember her listening to. Now, of course, Elvis did sing a lot of gospel songs, but even to that crossover, Elvis was very popular with my mom. I think she and dad are interested in going to see that movie, which they don't go see movies often in the theater. In fact, they went to see Top Gun in the theater, which they both really enjoyed, and I think that's the first movie they've gone to in maybe decades. I'm not completely sure. They did that for their anniversary a few weeks back. But Elvis himself, such a influential, transitionary character in our history, and died very young. I think he was 41 or 42 years old. He was about my age when he died. And the impact he made was amazing. And there's a quote in the movie where he's talking to Priscilla, and he's upset. It's near the end of his life, and he says, I'm never going to get to make that thing that people remember me for. I never got to make that great movie or that great whatever. I'm going to be forgotten about. Of course, we all know here, 50 years after his death, that he certainly is not forgotten about it. He's one of the most famous names the world has ever known. Most people recognize the name Elvis Presley. So the quote we talk about, "You only pass this life once, you don't get an encore." And we think about that in Elvis's life. And he felt he needed an encore, right? He didn't really believe he had lived a life that people would remember. But for us, how does that apply to us? And we think about it. Now, if we want to use the analogy of a performer at a concert, an encore is when they go back out on stage, right? They finish their normal set, and they come back out to give the fans one more song, two more songs. Now, in the old days, encores, I don't think, used to be planned, right? They would finish their set, that was the end. Just like there didn't used to be post-credit scenes of movies. This was the end of the thing you paid to see. And if the fans were loud enough and cheering enough and more, we want Elvis, we want Elvis, we want Elvis, he might come back out and do one more song, right? That was the origin of an encore, to come back out and give us just a little taste more. That was the encore. After you were finished, come back out and leave one more positive taste in our mouth. Now, I think encore is usually planned. Sometimes the encore is 4 or 5 songs long. It's already on the set list. They know all along what they're going to do, whether the people ask for an encore or not. But that is the encore. And you think about this quote from Elvis, you only get one pass through life. We don't even get an encore. It's not that we don't get a second rehearsal or a second performance or a world tour. We don't even get an encore. We don't get one final chance after we've died to leave a positive taste in somebody's mouth. We get our first pass through life. But in the analogy of a concert, that doesn't mean that every song is a home run. That doesn't mean that every song gets the audience on their feet. In Elvis's case, it doesn't mean that every song gets the ladies throwing their intimates on stage, right? It doesn't mean that every step that he takes is perfect. But he means the broadly, I get one chance to impress this crowd. That's it. And maybe I misstep along the way. Maybe I have to start a song over. Maybe I have to start the whole set over sometimes because we're just out of sync. We're out of rhythm. We're not where we need to be. There's an incident that occurs. Maybe I got to start over. Maybe I got to walk back a little bit. Maybe I need to pivot, change course. Maybe I thought I was going to play slower songs and the crowd's not into it and I'm going to play faster songs, or vice versa. Whatever the case is, artists do that all the time. They get a feel for the audience and they change direction, right? A comedian, think about a comedian or any type of live entertainer. They have to feel the audience out and then decide where they're going to take their course. And sure, they have their plan. They have that path that they said they wanted to walk. They have that path that life presented in front of them. Sometimes they got to vary. Sometimes they got to deviate off of. Sometimes they make mistakes. And they got to get themselves back on course. And all of that is a great analogy when we think about our journey this year together and your life in general, where you're trying to improve your wellness, your mental wellness, your emotional wellness, your spiritual wellness, your physical wellness. You're going to take missteps. You're going to go off course. You're going to start doing something that you thought was going to work and it's not. And you got to change and do something else. You're going to have somebody that rushes the stage to interrupt you that maybe wasn't a good influence. And you got to get them off stage and get yourself refocused. All of those things happen in concerts, but we don't get an encore. And that's the way to think about it, right? So when the events happen in your life, in your fitness journey, in your wellness journey, to throw you off stage, when the fan rushes and distracts you, when life distracts you, when you strum the guitar and the strings break, and things don't quite go as you thought they would go. When you have a band member that tummy is upset, got to run off stage suddenly, and you don't have piano anymore. When the things happen, you don't get to wait for an encore to fix it in life. You don't get to wait for the second performance. You don't get to wait for the world tour. You got to find a way to pivot, take a step forward, keep getting to where you need to get. And that's going to be the big theme of our journey this entire year, is one step at a time, step by step, day by day, on we go. And I think that this quote speaks to that as well. I hope you all have had a good July so far. I have. I had a really good week last week. I'm filming this the day before you're watching it. I think I'm going to lose about 3 pounds in the week, which is good for me. I went to kickboxing 6 straight days. I walked Rufus 6 straight days. And I did 4 days of weightlifting. And I'll probably walk Rufus today, so it'll be a full week of walking. So I set that goal for myself for that 1 week. There's been so many things distracting me, and conventions and holidays and birthdays and vacations. And while my exercise game isn't where it once was, I've still been pretty consistent, at least 4 times a week. My diet is up and down. It'll be 5 days really good and 1 day down in the toilet. And then 6 days really good and then 1 day down in the toilet. And it's hard to offset that. And so I really wanted to get focused and make July a good month. And that week was a great week. So I hope the same is true for all of you. And I hope that this next week, I think it's the 3rd week of July. We have 1 week left after this week in July. And then we'll be crossing, approaching the fall. It's very hot here in the summer, so we still got a ways. But we'll be on the path to the fall where it gets a little bit easier to cool off. Anyway, I hope you all have a great week. I'll talk to you next week.